Oh, do you know what? Isn't it really weird when you have to have your photo taken? As much as you're as comfortable as you possibly can be with yourself as a podcaster, after all, you've overcome the fear of hearing your own voice. It's still really desperately weird going through a photography shoot. At least that's what I think. But as crazy as it might sound, you need podcast photography. Seriously, podcast photography is vital to your podcast marketing efforts. And that's what we're going to discuss here today on Le Podcast Accelerator, which is French, of course. That's exact direct translation for the Podcast Accelerator. Do not DM me. I won't take anything else. That is definitely complete and utter fluent French. Welcome to the show. I'm Mark Asquith, of course, CEO and co-founder here at Rebel Base Media, where we had some big news this week. We've announced 5 new team members working across our customer experience team for the group Rebel Base Media products, our lead productivity engineer, and 2 new team members for our Captivate product team. Plus, we announced a range of high-profile new advisors to our products as well. Mr. Chris Ducker, Kathy Doyle, VP of Macmillan Podcast, Mr. Daniel J. Lewis, and the wonderful Jordan Harbinger all joined the advisory board. It's been a big week, so thank you to everyone that supported us. Thank you for the kind words on email and some of the DMs that I've received. Thank you so much for that. Of course, you can still try Captivate.fm for your podcast hosting 7 days totally free. Look at why people are making a bit of a big deal of it. Why are people enjoying Captivate so much? Maybe it's time to take a look yourself. Captivate.fm. And of course, the show is brought to you by AWeber, the team over at AWeber who helped me to understand email marketing a little bit better. You know, nothing online happens without email these days, and email marketing is absolutely vital to any sales funnel. And you might be thinking, well, Marco, what's that got to do with me? I'm a podcaster. Well, you got to own your data. You know, you can't just create a group on Facebook and leave it at that. You got to own your data, and your email list is your currency, all right? So please consider that and maybe take a look at AWeber for complete free trial access for 30 days at markasquith.com/AWeber. Now, the truth is that whilst podcasting is definitely an audio medium, the brand around our podcast is very much a visual one. And as the creator or host of your show, it's vital that you take the time to craft your brand image. And as uncomfortable as it might be, that includes your photography. Now, if you think about how we make decisions, everything is hyper visual, isn't it? You know, we look at podcast cover art, look at Dr. Death, some of the Wondery shows, look at some of the Podcast One shows, look at some of the biggest shows on Apple Podcasts. None of them have crap cover art. And there's a reason that you see celebrities, celebrity entrepreneurs, where you see people that you know and admire, hosts of bigger podcasts, investing, of course, in photography. But what's that got to do with you as the independent creator? Well, look, brand is everything. Now, brand is not just the logo. Brand is not just the color palette. It's not just the tone of voice. It's not just the fonts that you use, but it's the way that you put yourself out there. And in particular, it's the style that you parlay when people look at anything that you put out there. So it's that full end-to-end experience, okay? And one of the most important things that you can do is make sure that your photography is right. And there's a big difference between someone that uses like a quick iPhone headshot for the photography and someone that sets aside a few $100, it's not that expensive, a few $100, and puts that into high-quality photography. Now, I went through this last year here at Rebel Base Medium for my own kind of personal brand, markasquith.com, which is just basically me, you know, having a website that I can put the show on, you know, this show right now. And I don't really do too much else to it. Yeah, there's a coaching page on there. There's a grow your podcast page on there. But really, that's just my way of putting my musings out there. And what I wanted to do when I was setting this up was make sure that the imagery that I chose really put across the things that I do and how I approach things, the way that I dress, my approach to things, that kind of, you know, that typical Mark, loud, brash, kind of sometimes a bit outspoken, you know, probably should shut his mouth a little bit more often kind of brand that I've got. You know, that is my brand. That is what it is, you know, like it or not. And so when I put the photography together, you know, I was very careful to choose a photographer that I knew would understand that. I worked with a fantastic Tim Cleesby here in Sheffield. But there are others, you know, if you're out at Podfest or if you're in the podcasting space, you've got people like Natalie Champer-Jennings, who's a fantastic photographer, and you've got people like Laura Perman Photos, who's here in the UK. Like, they can all do great work with you, but what you've got to be really clear on is what you're trying to put across with that. Now, you might be thinking, well, you know, I can just do this with my iPhone and so on and so forth, but believe me, brand is everything. You wouldn't put necessarily a show out that sounded crap. You wouldn't necessarily, some people do, but you wouldn't necessarily put a cover art together, a square podcast cover art that looked crap. Why would you then guide people to your website? Or why would you put speaking engagements together? Or, all these things that you need to do as a podcaster, all these branded things that you need to do, your podcast social profile, pictures, why would you put those at the bottom of the list? You wouldn't. They have to be high quality. And I believe truly that sets the perception of being a higher class brand and thus a higher class podcast, and thus it helps your marketing. Now, you don't have to spend much on this. A few $100 is going to get you a good half-day photo shoot with someone, which should be plenty. You've got to make sure that you know how to brief them, make sure that you chat to them and secure the photography space, whether it's studio space or somewhere that you're doing it that you know and you like. But make sure that you chat to the photographer about what you're trying to put across. And they will suggest outfits for you to wear. They will suggest the style of photography. Mine's quite edgy, quite high contrast stuff in the black and white ones at least. And what you've got to consider with this is that, yeah, all right, it's an investment. But if you don't do it, what are you going to do? You're going to use some crap photography, all right? And you can't do that. It's not good enough. It is not good enough. I'm really sorry to say it, but it is really not good enough. And by investing just a few £100, a few $100, you are going to by far stand out above all else in your niche because no one else is doing that, all right? And the images are going to last you for years. Like, I probably won't get new pictures done. We'll probably get some for the new Rebel Based Media setup and the new team. But me personally, I ain't going to get new pictures done for my show for a long, long time. Probably the next 6 years, I'm probably not going to touch them. I don't need to. I've got everything I need. High resolution. And that's the other kicker. You need high resolution pictures. If you start doing speaking gigs, even if it's a local speaking gig to talk about your podcast, don't send them low-resolution pictures, all right? You're just letting yourself down. Now, what I would suggest, I know what the next thing that people are thinking is, well, all right, Marco, that's all right for you to say. You can kind of, you get that through work because this is what you do for a living. Right, I get it. So you're an independent podcaster. You don't have the brass to do it. I understand that, and I can completely get on board with that. I really, really do understand that. You've got to be very, very frugal with what you invest in. But this is so important that I would urge you to find an amateur photographer that has got enough knowledge and, someone that's been doing it for years that just doesn't make a living from it, but that still is excellent. Get them to do you some favour shots or, a friend, or go to the local university and speak to them. Tell them that you'll give them a shout out. If someone's got a portfolio online, a photographer, I'll give you a shout out in my podcast. Do a swapsy, all right? You scratch my back, I scratch yours, quid pro quo. Let's trade how we used to trade, I'll put you a fence up if I can have one of your chickens. That's probably how it all used to work in the olden days, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. So the point is that finance doesn't have to be the stopper for this. It doesn't, you know what? It doesn't have to be the stopper for that many things if you're willing to just do a little bit of extra work. So consider that. Your photography is absolutely vital, all right? Get it right, do it once, and you don't have to touch it again, but it will set you apart, and it will show that you mean what you say, that you are someone that cares about putting it into the content, into the audience, and into your brand. Do not underestimate the power of high-quality photography, all right? Please invest in it, regardless of whether or not you think podcasting is just an audio medium. Now, we'll be heading out to LA next week. Myself and Sam, we're out there for 9 weeks. We're on the west coast of the US for 9 weeks starting next week. We're in Los Angeles speaking at Podcast Movement Plus. We've got some very interesting meetings out there as well for Captivate and Productivity. And, of course, we'll be then headed down to Social Media Marketing World at the end of March, followed immediately by Podfest in Orlando, and then back to San Diego for Traffic and Conversion Summit and a few other bits as well, like Rain Summit, New York City. So if you're around, if you're going to be at any of those events, hit us up. Let's get a beer. I don't think we're going to put any meetups on at any of these events apart from Podfest, where we're going to do the Whirly Dome, which is outstandingly good fun. But I don't think we're going to do any meetups at these other events because, believe it or not, we're actually going as attendees and speakers. We're not exhibiting at any of the other events apart from Podfest. We're actually going quite literally as speakers, and we're going as attendees to, in particular, Traffic and Conversion, because I love going to that conference to learn as a SaaS marketer. So hope to see you at those. I know we've got some good friends out there that are going, so hit us up. We'll get a beer. We'll chill. We'll shoot the breeze a little bit. Safe journey if you are going out there. If you're not going out there, obviously the show will continue. I will carry on regardless. So I will see you on the next episode. Do check out Captivate.fm for your podcast hosting analytics needs. Check out the rebelbasedmedia.io website for some of the latest personnel news that we've put out. And until the next time, never forget, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel. Oh, And a big shout out to Evo Terra. Get well soon, buddy. Bye-bye.